Hi everyone, I'm really excited about this boho yarn tassel garland that my daughter and I just finished for her dorm room. This is something that we saw on the Pottery Barn Teen website. She had purchased some of her bedding from Pottery Barn, and this garland that we found there was so cute, but it was $75, so a little out of our price range for tassel garland, and we decided that we would just make it ourselves. So in this video, we're just going to walk through how simple it is to make. In the description below, there's a link to the tassels how-to. This is just talking about how you take the tassels and make the garland. So if you want to learn how to make the tassels first, go to the description and click on that link to watch that video, and then come back and watch this to learn how to make the garland. All right, let's get started. Okay, let's start by taking a look at what you'll need to make this boho yarn tassel garland. And let's start by talking about the yarn. I use 4 different colors. I use this light pink, light gray, I used this white, and I used a thing of dark gray. I used all 4 in their entirety, so it will take 4 things of yarn to do this project. If you have just a couple colors, you'd still need 4 things of yarn. Also, I have these wooden beads. These are assorted sizes. I only used the larger size, and I ended up using about 55 wooden beads for this project. So I've got a whole bowl of these smaller beads that I can use for another project. I got this at Michael's, and I used my the special half price coupon. And what you'll do is thread these beads onto a really long piece of yarn and have them in between these tassels. I used about 35 tassels on my garland. You'll want to cut a long piece of yarn. This is what you'll thread your beads onto and what you'll hang your tassels from. I cut mine a little over 6 feet long, which turned out to be right. I'm planning for my garland to be a little less than 5 feet. This is the needle that I use. You can get a couple of these at Hobby Lobby for like $1.10, so they're super cheap. They have a really big head, so that yarn easily fits right through them, and you can use that then to thread the beads onto your yarn. You'll want to go ahead and take that needle and just thread the yarn right through that big head and just tie it off in a knot. I think it's just a lot easier to do it that way. You have a little extra yarn on there, so it's not going to hurt anything to have to cut it off at the end. That way it's just not slipping as it continues to pull through the beads. And then go to the end of the piece of yarn that you cut, that 6 foot or 7 foot piece of yarn, and tie a couple knots in the end of it as well. That way as you pull those beads through, they won't come off on the other end. Then it's time to start threading your wooden balls onto your long piece of yarn. I thread all of my wooden balls onto the yarn before I ever start to attach my yarn tassels. These wooden beads in this Michael's assortment kit were really the perfect size because this needle just thread right through this hole just perfectly. It didn't give me a lot of trouble. Of course, every once in a while I would put one of the smaller beads on, and the smaller beads don't actually fit, and so I'd have to, pull those off. But the regular size, the larger size beads just fit perfectly onto this garland. Since we will be hanging this tassel garland on a dorm room wall, it means no holes, no screws, and no nails, which also means command strips. And that's what you see here. These are command strip hooks, and I was hanging them up in our living room just to be able to do a double check to make sure it would work okay with our tassel garland. And it looked like the weight held up just fine. Each one of these hooks holds up 4 pounds, and everything felt nice and secure when I got the garland put together. So I basically just tied each end of that string that we just beaded, and I tied it to the command hooks, and then I just separated the beads so that I'd know exactly how much was on each side of the garland. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hang my first tassel right in the middle. Again, that center bead is what marks the center of my garland. There's half of the beads are on the left and half are on the right. The center is where you'll want your longest tassel to drop. And so I'm just doing a double knot right here onto the yarn. I'm actually just tying the double knot within the yarn and then kind of letting go and letting it sit onto my yarn garland. And then I'm going to come in on the other side of that center wooden bead, and I'm also going to have another longer tassel hanging from the yarn. So basically the longest are kind of hanging in the middle, and then they'll begin to be shorter as they reach each of the ends. And it doesn't mean it's like one even cascade up. They kind of go up and down, but overall they're getting shorter as you get to the ends. So like I said earlier, I'm using 4 colors in this garland. And I'm just kind of alternating the colors. It's not an exact pattern, but you'll never see 2 of the same colors next to each other. And in between each of these tassels, you know, I'm moving the beads along so that there's 2 wooden beads between each of the tassels, and I'm also varying the height. So while they're getting shorter as they get to the end, they are still kind of varying up and down just to create a little bit of visual interest. If you found anything helpful in today's video, please take just a second and tap that like button. And if you like to do DIY projects, that's what this channel is all about. So please tap subscribe and hit the bell so you'll never miss any of my posts. Okay, now that all of the tassels are hung, it's time to trim off all of the excess yarn from those tassels. You'll see some pieces where the tassels hang pretty short. You'll have really long pieces of yarn, and of course those that were hung in the center that hang really low, they have short. But regardless, you really want to get all of that yarn off. It really cleans off the garland and gives it a very nice finished look. And that's it, our boho yarn tassel garland. I think it turned out super cute. It's going to look so great in her college dorm room. I wish you the best of luck if you try this project. Thanks for watching.